I was a wartime general. Now I'm a wartime president.
Your inner circle's been compromised. Let me fix it.
Watch yourself. You're not Steve Rogers.
You're right. I'm not. Wait for it.
Greetings and welcome to House of R, a Ringerverse podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network. I'm Mallory Rubin, and joining me today, carving out a few valuable moments before she has to head back to Bucky's latest congressional fundraiser, it is Joanna Robinson. Hello, my darling.
I'm still there in my heart and my mind. I'm still at the fundraiser with Buck.
I mean, who can blame you? He looked great. We are here, of course, as you can tell from the Bucky Barnes reference and our latest custom logo.
John Richter.
John Richter, my goodness. Wild stuff. To discuss the newest Marvel movie, the newest MCU movie, Captain America, Brave New World. But before we head to Celestial Island for treaty talks, for movie talks.
A cool, refreshing breeze.
It did look nice out there, I have to say. Some quick programming reminders. Here on the House of R, we will be back with you at the end of the week on Friday for our latest Yellow Jackets deep dive. We are breaking down Yellow Jackets here on House of R this season. If you heard us do it on Prestige TV last season and you're like, where are the pods? Great news, they're here.
Yep.
Join us in the wilderness, join us in the pit.
But not the pit.
No, not the pit. That's on Prestige.
Yeah.
As are our White Lotus conversations.
Mm-hmm.
We are covering White Lotus this season with Bill over on the Prestige TV podcast on Sunday nights. Join us there. On the Ringerverse front, it's an exciting week because tomorrow, Tuesday, is the debut of Ringer Quest. Steve Ahlman could not have worked harder on this. The team could not have worked harder on this. The whole gang got together and we played D&D.
Yeah.
For many of us, it was the first time we'd ever played. It was hours of fun. The video is also, as I understand it, hours of fun.
We thought they were going to do a tight edit on that. Apparently not. You get
No.
all the
goodness.
Fun. Yeah.
Wednesday, the Midnight Boys, pew pew, will be doing their Blackest Movies draft.
Cannot wait.
That will shortly be appointment viewing and appointment listening. And then on Friday, Jomi is going to have a little treat on the YouTube channel and on the Ringerverse feed for the Avatar: The Last Airbender 20-year anniversary. Jomi's doing a little celebration video. So check that out. Joanna, how can everybody follow along?
That's so cute because in our notes just says Jomi Avatar 20th anniversary. And my mind blinked and I was like, oh, the Jim Cameron movies. But now that I know that it's Avatar: The Last Airbender,
yeah,
thrilled to be alive.
I would have the decency to not mention that in front of you.
Thank you.
Given how you feel about that cinematic property.
Thank you for your kindness. Listen.
Yeah.
We've got a lot going on.
Yes.
And you mentioned all the videos. You can watch it on the Ringerverse YouTube channel. You can watch it on Spotify.
That's right.
How thrilling.
Wonderful.
What a joy and a delight.
I agree.
You should follow the pod, perhaps,
Yes.
on any social media platform you so choose to frequent these days. That's up to you. You could email us.
Do it.
hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com. We got some very enlightening emails after our, I'm going to say it. I don't usually like to use this word. I'm going to say it. Epic romantasy episode that we recorded last week. People loved your art, Mallory. They loved your insights. We got a lot more recommendations of books to read. So great stuff from the Bad Babies in response to that. Mallory,
was really fun.
48
Had a
hours
blast.
later, how are you feeling about the romantasy episode that we recorded last week?
Great. Honestly, can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. Highlight of your career?
It was certainly up. I'm relieved that I still have a career, at least
We're still
as far
here.
as we know today. But it was an absolute blast. Check it out if you haven't. If you've never watched A House of R, that is definitely...
That's the one to watch.
Joanna.
Mallory.
The last programming reminder, it's the same one as always. It's the friendly neighborhood spoiler warning.
Sure.
It's actually a lot of stuff today. Obviously, anything that happened in the newest Captain America movie, we're going to talk about today. Any prior Cap film, fair game. Any prior Avengers movie, fair game. Eternals. Incredible Hulk. Anything that's ever happened in the Marvel Cinematic Universe could, in theory, come up today. Some Marvel Comics canon could come up today. So, if it's something that happened that has a bearing on what happens in this film, it could come up today. Okay. Joe, these cherry blossoms are not going to look at themselves. It is time to pod. It is time for the opening snapshot.
We're on the brink of war. can't trust anyone.
Nothing about this feels right. Captain America. You ever ask yourself who's playing who?
Joanna?
Tim Blake Nelson, my guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is the leader your guy?
No, I didn't say the leader is my guy. I said Tim Blake Nelson is my guy.
Good distinction. I suspect that'll come up again today. Okay. We're going to spend a little bit more time than usual in the opening snapshot because there are a lot of big picture matters to discuss before we dive into some of the character particulars, which we will do in a little bit. Let's talk about opening weekend. We are recording on Monday, so we're a few days into the release of Brave New World. Box office.
Not bad.
Not bad. At the time of our recording, these numbers sometimes change and are updated across a Monday. We're in the morning here. 100 million domestic, 92 international, 192 globally for opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
The critical and fan response. Rotten Tomatoes, 51% among critics, 80% among audience members. Metacritic, 42, checking in at the worst mark ever in the history of the MCU. Cinema score, also the worst. B-.
Yeah, Cinema Score being the one where they ask people when they're leaving the theater
What'd you think?
What'd you think of the movie?
So what do you make of that particular brew of critical fan response and box office reception? And also just like pairing that those data points with your anecdotal experience when you saw the movie at your screening. Like, what was the theater like? What have you been hearing from people in your lives? Do you feel the gap that we're seeing there, I will say, between like the critical reception and the fan reception, I am not feeling in my life. I have yet to have a person in my life tell me they liked the movie. So I am slightly surprised by this. And I'm wondering if like you have had a different experience or a similar one. Incredibly muted reception in the screening and when I went to see the movie on Saturday in LA this weekend. What's your
I think worst
clock in of the reception been?
I think worst ever Cinema Score is very telling because even though it's B- and 80 that matches on Rotten Tomatoes, that's still the lowest that a Marvel movie has seen. Even things that we like to hold up as, big flopperoos for Marvel, So like I have not talked to anyone personally who's really liked this movie. I have seen across various social media platforms, listeners of our show or the Ringerverse who had a fun, fine time at the movies. And like, there's nothing wrong with fun, fine time at the movies.
No, certainly not.
That's great.
I think a fun, fine time at the movies.
I think the problem with something like this property is not only is it a Marvel property, but it's a Captain America movie inside of a Marvel property.
Yeah.
And the bar for that is just like incredibly high.
Yes. My favorite MCU franchise, your favorite MCU franchise, many people's favorite MCU franchise. Yeah.
And so even though, as we heard in the clips already, Sam is taking over for Steve. This is not a Steve Rogers movie. Right. It has that barrier of sort of like expectations around it. So I think that, my screening that I went to was incredibly muted. Everyone I've like all the Marvel fans of my life felt like it was a disappointment to them. Yep. And but if it's a fun, fine time at the movies, that's not the end of the world. I just think we've come to expect so much more from Marvel at its best. Because this to me felt more like a Sony movie, like just a messier property. And we'll talk about sort of like the edit.
Way less fun than a bad Sony movie, though, which I think is damning.
Yes. Not as fun as a bad Sony movie. Yeah. And it's missing two hallmarks, I would say, of Marvel at its best and the Captain America franchise at its best, which is like wit, charm, and heart. I think the disparity we're seeing between the critical consensus and the fan consensus is not as wide as it often is in these like sort of for the fans, like this movement of the fandom to be like, you critics don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. This is actually closer, I think, than some of those gaps are. So I don't know. It's not great for Marvel, but like when I walked into the studio this morning, Steve was like, were mom and dad fighting? Because Van and I had a very lengthy sort of discussion on the group chat about what this box office meant. Yeah. Mom and dad are not fighting. Mom and dad are fine. But I think that what it means in a larger context, I think Van and I disagreed on some things, but agree with one thing, which is that it's not as bad as it could have been. Yeah. For Marvel.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They knew, like everyone knew, this was not going to go well. The signs have been there for a very long time. Yeah. And you have this question later, but like this does not diminish my anticipation for Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. This has always been when we did our hype draft, like we've known that this was probably not going to go very well.
Right.
And I think similar to the Echo binge dump on Hulu last year, they were just sort of like, let's keep our heads down and do this and see if we can just sort of like get through this. And then if Thunderbolts hits and Daredevil hits and Fantastic Four hits, then people won't this won't sink us.
Yeah.
Is I think how they're approaching this.
I feel similarly. I did not enjoy this movie. And I think the movie really failed Anthony Mackie, a performer I love, and Sam Wilson, a character I love.
Yeah.
I similarly, though, am not feeling a diminishment of my, not only just like overall confidence, because we've been having a little bit of is the MCU back experience, but like my enthusiasm specifically for those releases that you just listed, the pending releases, Daredevil, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four, like are high on our hype meter. Like not just, maybe they'll be good. Like these are things we're really looking forward to. And nothing about this sapped my enthusiasm for that. I will say, it was like, listening to Big Pick, I think the question that was posed there, which I am obviously distilling and summarizing, thoughtful discussion, listen to it in full, was on some level like, okay, sure, we're excited about the things to come, but how is it possible for something to go this wrong?
Yeah.
And I think that's valid. Like, I do think that's a valid question because, and let's talk a little bit about, let's provide some of that context.
Sure.
We're going to talk about some of the many properties that are somewhere between valuable or imperative viewing before you get here. But let's actually just talk about like the reshoots and the what happened here question. Then we'll hit the what do you need to have caught up on before watching this movie, and then we'll get to some of the character arcs in the film. So, Joanna, we've talked about this a lot before over our many pods over the years. There is nothing particularly new or unique about an MCU property requiring a reshoot. As you have noted, they are routine, they are planned for, they are a part of the process. However, it did seem like even by that standard of what is typical, as these were happening in real time, as they were being reported on in real time, that something atypical was going on with this movie in terms of the level of reworking that was required. You literally wrote the best-selling book on how the MCU was built. So there's no one better to provide this context about maybe what went wrong here. For me, I'll say like one of the things that I found most disorienting about watching the movie, and even then the stretches where two characters who I really like watching in a scene together, say Isaiah and Sam, or Isaiah and Joaquin, or Joaquin and Sam, or Bucky and Sam. Yeah. A stretch where maybe the action is fun. The fact that the movie felt so palpably, so clearly like it had been hacked apart and then cobbled back together was just like a disorienting viewing experience. It was kind of impossible not to watch it thinking about, okay, well, some of this is because we know a character like Sidewinder, Giancarlo Stanton's performance was added in later in the process. Your mind starts to race and wonder why, what were they accounting for? Is it because they had to cut out certain other members of the Serpent Society who didn't end up making the final movie, who we know were in earlier versions of it because that wasn't working? Is it because they needed to account for what I thought was just genuinely like all-time bad stuff with the leader, like one of the worst Marvel villains in a movie that I can remember? I would say like in the running for the least compelling.
Yeah.
So, okay, you need to put a character like Sidewinder in to give us something to focus on other than the leader. However, then it's only 3 scenes and the leader is still in the movie a ton. It's like, if you know you have a problem, correct more fully than that.
Yeah.
Or then you have stretches where you, like, it just looked like, and I don't mean to sound like an asshole. Like a lot of people work super hard on these movies.
And there's some stuff that looks great.
Some stuff looks great.
And
I thought the Celestial Island fight looked really cool.
Yeah.
But like when Sam is making his speech to Red Hulk at the end of the movie, it has rarely been clearer that somebody is standing in front of a green screen of a prior shoot,
It's like they
redoing
took-
a take.
It's like they took a Windows background and said, like, execute cherry blossoms, and then just, like, made Anthony Mackie stand in front of that.
Yeah.
It's not good.
So
I can tell you what happened here. Okay.
enlighten us and illuminate us.
Well,
How did we get to this point?
I can tell you what happened here in contrast to, like, what happened with what's going on with the Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Daredevil, to a certain degree, is, like, in a similar boat as this movie in terms of the fact that, you know, they shot a bunch.
Drastically
they're
reworked.
reconsidering it, or they're reworking it. So time will tell whether or not we'll be able to see those seams as much as we see them in this movie. We're very hopeful that we won't. And Daredevil has the advantage. I would say that Sam Wilson has not yet been the main character of a great thing, whereas Charlie Cox's Daredevil has. And so there's, like, just a bit more goodwill, you know, coming into that experience. For Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, let's think about the production of these movies.
Yeah.
This movie, you know, the director was hired in 2022. They went into production early 2023. Early 2023, they still don't know that Quantumania is going to be as big of a disappointment as it is.
Right.
They don't know that the Marvels are going to be as big of a disappointment as it was.
Right.
And they are still swimming in endless Disney Plus properties that they're trying to juggle at the same time.
Right.
And so this was Marvel trying to put this movie together somewhat, not hastily, but, like, trying to coast off of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You know, they announced that this movie was happening right when we got the Falcon and the Winter Soldier finale. Malcolm Spellman, who was, you know, the head writer ostensibly on that TV show, is a credited writer on this, along with several other people, a credited writer on this film.
Never a good sign when you see that many people in the screenplay.
So many people credited.
Yeah.
So they're making this film in the morass of Marvel chaos, when they are overwhelmed and swamped. And when Quantumania crashed and burned the way that it did, Marvel was able to make the case to Disney, we need to do less, right? And so that's where we get this, like, massive slowdown in production. We get just one Marvel movie last year in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Right.
You know, we get the drip of Agatha. We get the drip of Daredevil. Like, the Disney Plus shows are slowing down.
Right.
And they're just sort of like, we need to do less. Bob Iger comes back, and Bob Iger's like, we're going to do less. Once again, pretending he's not the one who in the first place said do more, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do less, and we're going to do it better. And so when you get to stuff like Thunderbolts, which was delayed until after the writer's strike, and Fantastic Four, this is in the do less Marvel era. And so for those films, even though they're all coming out in the same year, Captain America was like reshoot.
Right.
Those other films were being made in a time when they had more resources of attention to devote to them. And so for things like Guardians 3 and Daredevil and Wolverine, which felt like a bit of an outlier because James Gunn is his own thing, and Deadpool and Wolverine with Ryan Reynolds, et cetera, is its own thing. Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four will be the real test of, like, new slowdown Marvel.
Yeah.
Can we do this? So that's sort of my assessment of what happened here and why it does not diminish my enthusiasm for these other things.
That's incredibly useful and important context over not just the last few months, but the last few years to keep in mind. And I like thinking of it now as almost like it's the inverse of the way we talked about Guardians 3, right? Where that was like, well, no matter how good it is, it can only tell us so much. It can only indicate so much about the confidence that we should have and the sureness of the path that we're on. And this is like a little bit of, at least we can hope, the opposite, where it is the product of a moment in time and a lot of the different things that were happening. It doesn't necessarily mean that those same things are going to damn the properties to come.
I think, and I think it's just it's a show of Marvel's. I mean, Marvel was overwhelmed because they were given this edict to create so much content. So that's its own thing. But there was also a hubris of, like, we've done so well for so long, we can't fail. And this is really a case of running before you can walk with Sam Wilson. I think they just, like, charged ahead. And especially, as we'll talk about with this movie, a bafflingly faint echo of one of their most successful movies.
Okay, so let's hit that. Let's talk about some of the many properties that.
But what's wild I agree. Many properties are like in the brew here,
in the
right?
brew. Yeah. Yep.
But also Marvel's in this era of like trying to make it so that you don't feel like you have to have done a ton of homework in order to watch this. You don't have to have seen all the Cap movies, all the Avengers movies. And in fact, it might serve you if you didn't, because there's a new guy playing Thunderbolt Ross, and you don't have to have seen this TV show in order to understand what's going on here. Did they do that successfully? I don't think so, but that's what they were trying to do.
I agree. A very odd combination of have you seen something that came out literally in the year the MCU started, because it's going to be the single most important thing. And hey, by the way, if you missed the 6-episode television series in which the star of this movie starred and went on a journey, a meaningful, thematically rich journey from Falcon to Captain America, will catch you up in 3 sentences.
And met the two
most
bizarre
important
incongruity characters. I mean, here's a real problem for that for me, and this is just something I'm going to hit again and again. I think throughout this is like Winter Soldier, our shared favorite, right? Has at the heart of it incredible emotional connections for Steve across multiple people. One of those people is Sam Wilson, who he meets inside that very movie.
Right.
He meets inside that very movie, and it is instantly an important, profound relationship.
Yeah.
Sam's a counselor. Like, they're soldiers together. Like, all this stuff is really important and connected. And inside the context of a film where there's the Bucky Steve thing, which is, the most important relationship to me in all of Marvel Cinematic
and where
Universe.
Steve and Nat fuck on the side of the road.
Sure.
Headcanon.
And I love that for you.
And by headcanon, we are referring, of course, to, okay, carry on.
Yep. Knee deep in the passenger seat. So Joaquin Torres, Danny Ramirez, who was like quite charismatic.
Incredibly charismatic performer.
I really like him.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm really excited that he's in The Last of Us.
Yeah, same.
That we're supposed to already understand their relationship because we met him in Falcon the Winter Soldier.
Right.
But they just are not doing the same caliber of work to make that relationship feel important, profound, emotional. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about the Winter Soldier thing just for another second here.
Of course.
So this movie opens with a different styling of the Marvel wordmark, the Marvel opening. We're not only invoking the, flashing light that's going to end up being essential to the plot mechanic of mind control, phones on the fritz. I was like, this is a tough movie for airdrop.
A friend of mine was watching this last night in the theater, and he had the theater all to himself, so he was just texting me through the movie, which he tries to do sometimes, and I usually tell him, don't text me during a movie because I hate that, but he was like, there's no one in my theater, so I was like, go to town. And he's like, they really need to stop advertising iPhones, and I was like, press pause on that take.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Not the best film for just phones, I would say.
There is a flip phone?
Well, I have a note. Okay, actually, can I quickly get this nitpick off? Because everything we just talked about, and then we'll get back to Winter Soldier and the other properties, promise. Everything that we just talked about like, okay, the reshoots and the filming with entirely new characters after initially concluding production, etc. Those are big things. All of the context that you provided was incredibly illuminating. None of that, though, will account for just the sloppiness of like little details inside of the movie that I thought consistently undermined it. Like, the flip phone was an example to me. Now, maybe I sound like an idiot and there's a great explanation for this. They're on the run, Joaquin and Sam. They're going to Camp Echo 1. It is established in a conversation between other characters that they are off the grid.
They've ditched
their smartphones.
Ruth says that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We get burner phones. We get flip phones. Cute, fun little moment where Joaquin is like playing a game. He's like, you must have played this all the time because Sam's old. I chuckled. But then he gets the news about the shootout at the prison. How?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Nobody has that number. It's a burner.
Yeah.
Like, how is that information reaching them?
Correct.
That kind of stuff is just so distracting and takes you out completely. Even if you wanted to give yourself over fully to the film, it's like, you can't. Another example of this is like the president of the United States.
Yeah.
I can't believe we've gone this long without mentioning Harrison Ford. Don't worry, we'll get to him. Is in a subterranean bunker because of an assumed terrorist attack, an assassination attempt, a threat against his life.
Yeah.
A bunker, a security bunker. Kicks everybody out of the room to have the conversation with Sam. Ruth stays in. And we cut out to Layla and everybody else who's out there. And you can just hear. You can hear the conversation. Why is that not a soundproof room? Like little things
Why kick
like
people
that.
out if they're just going to be able to hear the conversation anyway?
Right? Little things like that really, really bugged me. And there were a lot of things like that in the movie.
It felt sloppy.
Yeah. Okay. Back to the prior canon. So there's another Captain America movie that we'll get to in a second that's most important in terms of character history, but without question, as you noted already, the Captain America film that this movie is trying to emulate the most is our favorite MCU film, the best MCU film, Winter Soldier. Spy thriller there, political thriller here, that history between characters, the street level aspect, this question of can you trust or must you mistrust those in power. That is not a comparison that this movie should be inviting. No. It is not.
It reminds me of the conversations we had around Gladiator 2, where we were like,
yeah.
why?
Yeah.
They're only making themselves look worse by doing the beats of the original film. To have, you know, a Camp Lehigh-esque sort of foray, to have this cold open action sequence. I mean, that's fairly standard for Marvel, but still, to have a Black Widow here, to have a Falcon here, to have Harrison
trying to do the car. I'm here. Someone is here stopping your car with gunfire.
Yes. The car attack. The two of them on the road in the car. Do you think that they fucked on the way to Echo?
I hope so. I would love that for them.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And the aerial, battle over water, and Harrison Ford in sort of the Robert Redford position.
Yeah. And even again, Apple, because they are dropping in the Apple store.
The Apple store.
We've chatted a lot about how in those early phases of the MCU, in the Infinity Saga, one of the great strokes of genius from Feige and the brass was the genre specificity across films. And no, you can't point to any franchise inside of the MCU that does a better job of showing how powerful that could be than the Cap franchise, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like really, really excited. You were trying to keep me in check, but I was like,
sorry.
No, I was really excited by the trailers because they were giving me, intentionally, obviously, that we know you loved Winter Soldier and we're gonna do
we know you
the
love
thriller
it
thing.
When Harrison Ford is a gruff president, action president. We know you love it when Harrison Ford is in clear and present danger.
You've watched Air Force One and Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games?
Yeah.
Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger are great fucking movies. Don't ask me to think about those movies before seeing this. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Captain America Civil War. I would say that this is the most crucial of the prior Cap films to actually see before this of the Cap films because of the history between Sam and Thunderbolt Ross, or as I used to always refer to him on binge, that fucker Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah.
Still painful for me that the greatest love of my life, Harrison Ford, is playing my least favorite Marvel character. But everything with the Sokovia Accords, which of course comes up many times in this film, this question of just what power, what ability to act unilaterally and make decisions should enhanced individuals, should superheroes have? How do heroes interact with a government apparatus? Obviously, part of the power of the Steve Rogers arc in general across Winter Soldier and Civil War and beyond is that the guy literally called Captain America is the one who questions the establishment and challenges the body that he was a part of. And so for that idea to be present here, and Sam was part of as he reminds Ross and viewers here, right? Part of the group with Steve,
Wound up on the raft.
with Wanda,
Yeah.
that ended up in the raft, that went on the run with Nat, of course. And so that is like really crucial before we get here. Obviously, Avengers Endgame.
Were you mad that Sam showed up and Harrison Ford didn't go, the futurist? The futurist is here.
He knows all.
Sorry.
Clint. What do we think Clint's up to these days?
Spending time with his family on the farm.
Avengers Endgame. This is, of course, when Old Man Steve gave Sam the shield. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier television program, which has come up a couple times today. I think certainly thematically, this is the most important. This is Sam's show. It is the most important prior canon in terms of what it means for Sam and to Sam as a Black man and a Black hero to become Captain America and to carry the shield. That's what that show was largely about.
That's what that show was
Yes.
about. But they stripped the racial identity aspect out of this movie, I would say, almost completely. There are the lines we already heard, the famous one from the trailer, like, you're not Steve Rogers. There's an implication there. And I don't mind these things being subtle at all. There is, that there are racial implications to all of this. But Falcon and the Winter Soldier, for all of its many flaws, was really adamant and engaging.
Had an incredibly clear point of view.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And I feel like that has just been like, they just put a pillow on top of it for this movie. I think it feels like to make it more palatable. And there are meta aspects of this movie that actually I really loved. Whenever we see Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson say, Steve made the wrong choice, or I'll never be him, or it shouldn't have been me.
Yeah.
Like, how can you not think about this actor sort of struggling to find his footing, not as an actor, but just sort of like the place of prominence that Chris Evans as Steve Rogers held in the Marvel universe. And Sam had a show that was a mixed bag, and this film that is, was besieged by all of these rumors and speculation before it even premiered.
Yeah.
And so watching Anthony Mackie, again, a performer I really like, sort of say, like, did they make a mistake in picking me? Like, that got to me emotionally. And, and especially like inside a scene with Sebastian Stan as Bucky, who like a lot of people wanted to be the new Captain America. Like, I thought that stuff was really good. I just really, I thought it was frankly kind of cowardly for them to tone down the racial aspect of his struggle inside of this movie, as represented by Isaiah to a certain degree, but like still, once again, it's just like a much more muted version of that.
I think part of it too is that the movie the movie start to finish more broadly, its politics are muddled. And so, you have a scene like the final scene where Sam and Joaquin are talking about the burden of responsibility, the burden of power, the burden of having a seat at the table when everybody who doesn't and wants one is watching you. Every scene and conversation between Isaiah and Sam, but I agree. The Sam Bucky scene was, easily one of the highlights of the movie. And I thought that line from Bucky, like, Steve gave them something to believe in, but you give them something to aspire to, was like a moment where you feel that heart, not only the history between the characters and how the depth of that history, their shared experiences, their connection to each other, their connection to the same other people, fuels the truth of that and makes it so much more important than if somebody who doesn't have that history with Sam says that to him. I thought that was really beautiful and also, again, very thematically rich. But just like then beyond that, what are we actually supposed to take? And some of this, I think, is just difficult. I don't expect everybody watching the movie to feel this way about it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I found it difficult to separate watching this movie from our current political climate and the moment in time in which we are watching the movie, and found it sort of strange that Sam, a character we have seen in the past, challenge misguided authority.
Yeah.
actually be one of the voices who was courageous enough to say, I don't think you're right and I don't trust you, routinely saying in this movie and trying to convince characters like Isaiah, no, it's important for me to stand next to Thunderbolt Ross, even though this guy has been responsible for monstrous crimes. Now, I think you could say the movie is taking pains to stress the importance in a difficult political moment of unity and trying to align together, period, as the Ross signs say. And I think certainly if you're going to try to take a character like Thunderbolt Ross and make the idea of change not just about the pending Red Hulk transformation, but this question of, can somebody who you did not align with or agree with politically, morally, socially, philosophically, almost existentially, be someone you talk yourself into working with for the good of the country? Those are interesting ideas, but they weren't interrogated in, like, they're really interesting ideas, but you need to really grapple with them in full in order to explore them in a way that lasts.
It gets lost in the question of can a leopard change his spots? Like, can you change? Can you be a better person? There is this like redemption arc for Thunderbolt Ross that we're supposed to be rooting for, that like Sam is actively rooting for. And I'm like, I'm like them bringing in Liv Tyler to play Betty Ross is a step in the right direction, but just way too sparingly used as this motivation for him.
Yeah.
And
I'm going hard the other way on the Betty thing, which I'm sort of
like, you hate that Betty's here. I agree with like, it's been too long.
I was going to hit this later when we got to Hulk, but let's just do it here. Like, I have been one of the people for a long time who's like, how hard is it to bring Betty back?
Yeah.
Where is Liv Tyler? Like, why is Betty not in the MCU? This is absurd.
Making the leftovers, baby.
It's true. Yeah. This was just too Martha to me.
No.
And
the way it's executed is bad.
But also, like, I don't care. This kind of gets back to the opening point you were making about whether the movie, independent of what we know about the characters outside of it, is able to compel us inside of these relationships.
I think you and I are actually agreeing. I think we're actually agreeing.
I don't care about Thunderbolt Ross and Betty.
You don't, but a better movie could have made you care.
Yeah.
If they started at the beginning with like, this is the main source of, I mean, they mention it a bit in like a newscast, but like, if, because like, you know how the newscast is
They're
like.
always talking about people's boyfriends on the news. It's like Bruce Banners.
It's fine.
X.
But like a better movie with less time can make you care about the connection between these characters. Even it's like, you know, we talked about this all the time when we talked about the best of Marvel. We were talking about this idea of like, Feige fix it. Feige wrapping his arms around properties that didn't work. And if you have stuff in movies where you're like, all of a sudden I care about Thor: The Dark World, or all of a sudden I care about this.
Always cared about Thor: The Dark World.
I mean, it's just you.
Always cared about Thor: The Dark World.
And Chris Eccleston caring about that movie. Actually, nope. Chris doesn't care about that movie.
That's one of the great things about the last couple days is like all the people rewatching, they're trying to power rank the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom.
And it's like, was Thor: The Dark World?
No, it is bad. Don't lose your heads about this. Okay, so, but like in a better movie, you can make us care about that. So I think it's a good idea, poorly executed.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
We are also in the era of Harrison Ford. Have I mentioned he's the greatest love of my life and my favorite person in the world? He's working a ton. And there is a through line across many of his roles right now of like older gentlemen, still got it, still looks great, looking back and reflecting on the relationships that he did not prize enough at the time.
Bad dad Harrison Ford.
This is central to his character on Shrinking, a character I love watching. Shout out, Paul. This is present in 1923. This is very present in Dial of Destiny. This is like kind of the thing Harrison Ford is interested in doing right now. I think he's porting his life into his work right now. That seems clear, right? He's talked about this a little bit in interviews.
But also like,
but the reason I'm mentioning that is because I'm actually like here for that. I'm pretty compelled by watching him be like, this is a relationship I wish I had cared about.
Harrison Ford.
I can't believe I got to watch Harrison Ford ride a Peloton in this movie. That was great.
How did you feel about when he had to show up shirtless in front of the cherry blossoms at the end, and he was like so clearly trying to give us like hero torso?
I thought he looked fucking great, as I always think.
Great.
I was also going to say this for later, but let me just say now, because we are on the Harrison Ford standing there shirtless at the end after transforming back into a man phase. It is unforgivable. You know what I'm going to say.
I do know what you're going to say, but
It is unforgivable, Joanna. Unforgivable that Red Hulk's pants stayed on, because he is not. This is his first transformation.
How old is Harrison Ford?
I believe 82.
You want 82-year-old Harrison Ford to hang dong in a Marvel movie?
Yes, of course I want that.
Do you want a Red Hulk?
Yes, we've got Red Hulk. Give us Red Hulk. It is indefensible and illogical that his pants stayed on, because he's not Bruce Banner many transformations in, preparing for this moment by wearing super baggy loose trousers to give him enough room to transform.
I agree with
and
you.
He's not comics Hulk with his magic purple undie shorts that expand with him. But he should have shown the Red Hulk.
Do you want him just like knocking out groves of cherry blossom trees with his like Red Hulk dong?
We've got the tree trunks, and we should have gotten a tree trunk.
That's what you wanted.
You know I'm right.
Okay, so you wanted this like the X-rated Marvel. Marvel went R. Now they need to give you X.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Do you disagree? Yeah, Kevin. We're waiting.
Here's another problem. We're just going out of order,
Yeah,
and that's fine. Okay,
I think this is fine. Yeah.
This is fine.
Yeah. We'll talk about things as they come up.
Red Hulk.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we just stick with Red Hulk for a minute here?
A pretty great special effect. That's fine.
His face, they really made his face look like Harrison Ford.
The face is great.
Yeah.
Here's the crucial problem with this, and it's not just, as you noted in our notes,
Yeah.
why premise the trailer around Red Hulk and then wait until the very end of the movie to give him to us. But more than that, I agree with that. More than that, I would say the movie is couched almost as like a mystery. What's going on with Ross?
Why?
Let's get down to the root of it. And all of us watching at home, even if you hadn't picked up a comic in your life,
Right.
you saw a trailer and you're like, well, he's a Hulk. Well, he's trying not to be a Hulk because he's a Hulk. He's a Hulk. He doesn't know he's a Hulk, but he's a Hulk. Like it was preposterous to make this movie a mystery around that, when like that was the key. And I can understand, how could you not put that in your trailer?
You want to get people into the.
I completely understand that, but then you can't make it.
Don't make it a mystery in the movie.
The very end of your movie,
and don't make us wait till the very end to see him transform and only do it once. I thought this was astonishing, and not in a good way.
No.
I'm actually really
not in the way that
it's. Yes, exactly.
The Red Hulk would have been.
I'm really perplexed by this.
Hulkito, but probably not Ito, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No Ito, whether or not he's transformed. No,
Okay.
no. Okay, let's go back to some of the other properties that are meaningful precursors to this. Actually, on the Falcon Winter Soldier front, quickly before we move on from that. The Midnight Boys for years have been having a debate about whether, forget whether you love the shows, whether you enjoy watching them, whether you're compelled to watch them, whether the shows are actually essential before you see a film. And sadly, I think this was a victory for the you don't need to watch them camp, because they sum up in just a few sentences what is Isaiah's backstory. How do Sam and Isaiah know each other?
Well,
How do Sam and Joaquin know each other? Where did Sam get his armor? Why is it featuring vibranium?
I'm thrilled to say the sentence Jomi is right. Like that thrills, like, fills me with joy, but
makes me sad. Not that he's right, but that he's right about this.
No, but I think it was not the intention for that to be the case, but they have had to pivot to that. Now that they've heard from so many people, it feels like homework, it feels like homework, it feels like homework. They're like, shit, we can't make it so hard to feel like you can just stroll into a Captain America movie and watch him punch a Red Hulk. And so, wait. So, like, I think when you had something like WandaVision into Multiverse of Madness, that's essential. Or else you're not understanding what's happening with Wanda in that movie. And I think that was the earlier idea, that it would just flow from TV show, you know, or to watch, you know, Kamala Khan, like all of that stuff,
yeah.
like that felt a bit more essential. And now they're just like, we can't do that anymore. We have to take the sort of Netflix to MCU approach where it's like, these are the street level TV shows. And then these are the big movie moments, you know, because when we're going to have, you know, Kid Bishop show up in Young Avengers, like, is that going to be a TV show or that's going to be a movie? We're still like, unsure.
Yeah.
But you know, that feels like something we need to have known. But they're gonna try to make it so it doesn't feel that way. So is Jomi right now? Yes. Love you, Jomi. I'm glad that's true for you. But I don't think that was the original plan.
I certainly don't think it was the intention, but it sucks that it's where we are.
Yeah.
And like I worry that it then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where like once you start to concede that people are not watching or feel like they're behind, then it's like no matter how you recalibrate the volume and maybe what feels like it should be a show versus a movie and how these things relate to each other, it's like, oh, well, we'll be able to like paper it over in a few lines.
Flip side, I would say it opens up the door for wilder, weirder experimentations on TV when you get something like Agatha All Along, which doesn't need to, you know, people are like, oh, is Agatha going to show up in Fantastic Four or something like that? And like, she could, but like, I kind of like that story is going to, you know, continue on into Vision Quest and that's where that story is going to live. Or like, I like the idea that we've seen the end of Loki's story and we don't need to pull Loki back into the MCU. We could just keep that in like the sort of TV space.
Yeah.
So
Loki's
like,
sitting there, hands on the branches, watching everything just like the leader.
But like, but like something like Werewolf by Night, which is an experimentation that we really, really liked. Like I just like the idea of Marvel can play in those waters without feeling like it has to connect everything, because connecting everything just became too burdensome.
Yeah, I agree with that. So a little bit more intent about what belongs where and how to make all of those things feel still part of a connected universe, but also like we have planets in a solar system. We're not exclusively thinking about the shuttles between them. On the Falcon front, the timeline, we do see we have that line from Sam about how he's been trying to get Taurus to shut up for 3 years. So there's some math there. But we also get the date, April 2027, on the Celestial Island invite. And so we are set in time definitively. It's never gone wrong for Marvel before when they put a very specific date on a piece of paper in a movie. It's never gone wrong before. Okay.
This will be fine.
Ant-Man.
Remember how Shang-Chi was a thing?
I like that movie.
Oh, I like that movie too.
Yeah.
That was just the most egregious, I think, sort of date thing where they sort of re-altered a date inside of the movie.
That was my first time in a room, a crowded room of people again.
Oh.
Yeah.
But like,
COVID.
Also, that feels like it happened 1 million years ago and we have not seen that character since.
I had a similar, this movie was after Shang-Chi, but I had a similar response to like looking at the date for Eternals. That was a long time ago. That movie came out in 2021. I don't think I would have said that.
No.
Ant-Man you really just need for the bits because Torres loves Ant-Man. It annoys Sam because Sam and Scott. Good stuff. Black Widow, the thing to know about that is red dust, freeing the widows from the Red Room, mind control. Not sure if you've heard, Joe. Mind control is a thing in this movie, and it takes everybody an incredibly long time to figure it out. Eternals. Our guy, your guy. Team it.
My favorite.
Thwarted Celestial.
I think about him all the time.
This was a funny, like, are we ever going to see? Are they ever going to acknowledge? Why have we had so many MCU properties where no one acknowledges that there's a Celestial, like, mid-birth and then frozen in the Indian Ocean? And that was a good and reasonable question. And of all the, like, let's kind of go and close the loop on this thing, this was one of the more...
We're not closing the loop, we're opening it.
Exactly. One of the more seamless ways to do that, while then in classic MCU fashion saying we can't just say we're done with it. We have to say adamantium. They're mining for adamantium inside. Obviously the X-Men bat signal in a major way.
I think you meant
when we're seeing the different uses of adamantium, the human skeleton under medical.
Let's talk about X-Men. Why not?
Great
Shall
stuff.
we?
Sure.
Okay. Does this tell you then that we're going to see an origin story for Logan? because of the way they're talking about adamantium here?
Yeah.
Or do you ascribe to, you know, having seen Beast at the end of the Marvels or whatever, that like this idea that we are going to have the mutants enter the space via incursion from other worlds?
I don't know yet that anyone has satisfactorily answered the question of like, if the X-Men were here all along, how will they explain it? So I still lean multiverse, but
we did get that little riff when Kamala and her inside of her must-watch show you know, is
enjoyed that show.
up. Interesting. I love that show.
On the multiverse front,
you want to talk about the Stinger right now?
Can we?
Yeah, let's do it.
I don't say this lightly, but I thought this was insulting. Genuinely insulting, the Stinger of this movie.
I've rarely seen you so salty, and we haven't talked about this movie yet, so I was just taking your temperature reading the notes that you put together, and when I got to that, I was like, oh, Mal's mad.
So there's no mid-credits.
Yeah.
We wait for the post-credits. To be clear, waiting around and then having like a meh Stinger is not the insulting part. I actually love when you wait around and then they fuck with you and do a bit. I think that's great. Very charming. This is actually, I think, connected to what you were saying a few minutes ago about Red Hulk and like why make it a mystery. I think this movie consistently made the mistake of confusing what people in the movie know and what we as the audience know, and thinking that those two things had the same impact or import.
Yeah.
So the characters in the movie don't yet know that Thunderbolt Ross is going to become Red Hulk, but we do. And so it's a completely inert examination of trying to figure out what's happening with the pills and oh my God, we know. We literally know.
Can he change enough to not have a temper tantrum?
Everybody sitting in the theater, everybody knows.
Yeah.
So I had a similar reaction to building toward the post-credit being a scene in the raft with Sam and the leader and boom, 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 the others, the multiverse. It's like, we fucking know. We're 2 phases into the multiverse saga.
Yeah.
The final note of your movie can't be, oh my God, we're in the multiverse and like we're about to introduce you to characters from other worlds. First of all, it's just very odd that nobody is talking. I know the Avengers are not a thing right now. That's a part of this movie. Thunderbolt Ross would like and then would not like Sam to reform the Avengers. Okay. At no point has any word of the multiverse reached Sam. First of all, that's weird. But second of all, even if that's true, even if we can accept that that's true, Sam Wilson learning about the multiverse is not interesting to us because we know about the multiverse.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was such a lame and a misread of what would be interesting to us.
Okay, so before this movie came out, someone who's inside of does not work at Marvel Disney, but inside the industry was like, my prediction is they're going to put Doom as the Stinger. Robert Downey Jr. as Doom as a Stinger to get people's butts in seats for a movie that people don't seem that excited to see. Which is not, and so if people come out of this movie, they're like, oh my God, our first look at Robert Downey Jr. as Doom.
Right. Then
like,
everyone would go see it.
Do you think that would have been the move?
No.
Not that.
Yeah. No, I just think something.
So what's the move?
I don't know. I'm thrilled to say it's not my responsibility to make these movies. But
what if it's a stump speech from Bucky?
Yeah. I mean, something that
like
played more directly into like the next thing.
Into Thunderbolts, yeah.
Like the era where we saw Thor's hammer and that got us excited for the thing that was next.
Yeah.
Was the great era of the Marvel Stinger.
I do think we need to do next time on the MCU because, we're
Take us to the fundraiser, which takes us into Thunderbolts.
Yeah,
like
exactly. We're so burnt out on Charlize Theron is here, Harry Styles is here, et cetera, plotting out to movies that we may or may not ever see in our lifetime. And so, I agree with you. I think it should have been next time on and we get some sort of Bucky thing.
Or if you're going to do this and it's going to be the leader talking about the multiverse, you have to give us something specific inside of it. Like something. He's got to be doodling in his own shit on the walls of the raft, like the Fantastic Four logo. Something. He's got to draw the Baxter Building. Like, there's got to be something more than this. There just has to be. Speaking of the leader.
You know what I bet they wish they could have said?
Yeah.
Steve Rogers is coming back and Chris Evans is like, no.
Oh, Chris Evans. The leader was in a movie called The Incredible Hulk. And inarguably, this is the most important precursor to this film, which I just think is a shock. This movie came out in 2008. It was retconned to be set in 2011. Ross, the Hulk Hunter, Gamma, Betty, Samuel Stearns, the leader.
The decimation of Harlem.
Yes. This, if you had to say you can only pick one thing that was like, this was a spin-off and a continuation of. I mean, my instinct going into the movie would have been, of course, that thing would be Falcon and the Winter Soldier or Civil War or Endgame. And I think if you had to pick one thing, you would pick this, which is just wild.
It just didn't have, like, again, wrapping your arms around a property that didn't work and sort of bringing it into the MCU a la Thor the Dark World inside of Endgame, etc. That works if the thing you're doing is so rock solid that you can afford to use the juice that you have on this property to rehab something shaky that came before it.
Yeah. Do you want to just talk about the leader here?
Sure. I'm just saying that, like, this Captain America movie had too much to do on its own to bear the burden and responsibility of bringing the Hulk stuff into continuity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes, we had Thunderbolt Ross previously, but to bring Betty in, then to bring genuinely my guy, Tim Blake Nelson, absolute, not an abomination, but an abomination. Not a capital A abomination, but an abomination.
Yeah. So,
Tim Blake Nelson is the best.
Yeah, he's great.
He's the best. Oh, Brother Art Thou, wonderful.
Love.
Watchmen,
big film in the Rubin household.
Incredible. Oh, Brother Art Thou is like one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Like, I love Tim Blake Nelson.
That's one of my dad's favorite movies.
I would love to talk to your dad about. We thought you was a toad. Like, great stuff. Okay, Tim Blake Nelson, the best.
Oh man,
this is not only one of the worst characters, poorly written, worst character design.
Horrible.
We have seen.
Horrible. Yeah.
Outside of, I don't know what, the Green Lantern. You know what I mean? Like, what were we thinking at all with this? I'm so confused.
Let's just go right into our character dives. Okay. We'll talk about the leader. We're going totally out of order now, but it's fine. We're hitting the natural segues when they pop up.
Okay.
So no. So let's talk a little bit more about Samuel Stearns and the leader. I agree this looked just utterly confounding. Doesn't actually look like the comic book leader at all.
Do you think Tim Blake Nelson sat in that makeup chair? Because it looked like all like practical makeup and not special effects. Do you think he sat in that makeup chair and was like, I've made a huge mistake?
I don't know. I think he was probably like, I mean, maybe.
Or do you think he was like,
I've been waiting for this?
Or do you think he was like, I wowed them in Watchmen with a reflective mask on my face the whole movie, the whole like series?
All of the above. I don't know. I feel like
I can do this.
This is not dissimilar to the Betty thing where, so I actually think Incredible Hulk is slightly better than it's given credit for being.
I agree.
Like when I watch that movie, I am not like, how is this not considered a top 15 MCU movie or anything like that? But I'm like, this is an enjoyable movie to watch.
Sure.
We got Blonsky back. We were all the better for it. We wanted Betty.
She-Hulk, a great show.
She-Hulk ruled. We wanted Betty. People did. I don't want to ignore this fact or pretend like this is not the case. People did want the leader to come back. That has been a thing for a long time in MCU fandom. So the fact, the core, I want to like make this distinction because the core, like you're saying, impulse to return to this still open story terrain that had not fully been mined is like not the problem. It's, as you're saying, execution, the success of it, and also just like, did it fit and make sense here? And that with the leader was like something that I just could not stop bumping on. It's not just that we're like, okay, you know, are we going to get like intelligentsia and all the comics? No, of course. Like the MCU adapts and adjusts all the time. That's fine. For all the reasons we talked about earlier, with like they're trying to do Winter Soldier, the political thriller, Grounded, etc. Okay, like right away, the leader doesn't make sense in this movie. Immediately, in terms of the story they're trying to tell, there's an incongruity there that I think would have been very, very difficult, even with the best version of the character, which we did not get, to overcome. The leader as as a character who's facing off against Red Hulk, a Hulk foe, of course.
But that's
medicine and hubris gone wrong, body horror, like all of that.
That's a major complaint that people have with this movie is that it feels like a Hulk movie, which is not surprising because Marvel has been trying to smuggle Hulk movies because they don't have the rights.
But why do it here?
They don't have the rights to make a Hulk movie, right? So they've made Hulk without, Universal has the rights. It's a whole complicated thing. I did write a book about it. They can't make a solo Hulk movie. Hulk is market tested.
Yeah.
The most popular outside of Iron Man.
Absolutely.
Spider-Man, blah, blah, blah. Hulk is such a popular character. And so they've been trying to figure out ways to make Hulk movies that are not Hulk movies. So you get, he's in a Thor movie or he's in the Avengers movies, but that's not.
He's a friend from work.
It doesn't say Hulk in it. It's not Planet Hulk the movie.
Right.
It's allegedly a Thor movie. So you can get away with putting all the Hulk in there. Or you can have She-Hulk, which is a TV show. Like that's its own other thing. You can have Red Hulk here. The arc of this movie is not Sam's. What did Sam learn on his journey here? The arc of this movie is Ross's. And so it's a Red Hulk movie. Right. And I agree with you. Why? It's like, because I actually.
Why do that here?
I think they thought Sam Wilson as Captain America was weak as a character. And that's their fault, not the character in the comics or the performer's fault. That's their fault. And so they're like, let's bolster it up by something that is a surefire hit, which is Hulk stuff. People love Hulk stuff. So we'll just make it a hybrid Hulk Cap movie. And those are, unlike Thor and Hulk on a planet far, far away, those are not two great tastes that go great together. They just aren't. And so I think they thought it would make everything stronger to put Hulk in this. And in fact, it just makes everything feel more chaotic.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And I think there's also, this is a matter of compounding exponentially, maybe an original sin. Because I think for all of those reasons, Red Hulk and Thunderbolt Ross are totally defensible to me and actually make sense. Ross and Steve butted heads. Mm-hmm. Ross and Sam butted heads.
Sure.
The question of what Sam's philosophy and worldview for himself internally, and then what he conveys to the people closest to him, Isaiah, Torres, to the world at large about how he interrogates or ceases to engage with the people he does not agree with. Ross is actually a great figure for that. And then everything that Hulk has always stood for, and Red Hulk with Ross has always stood for, is pretty potent.
Mm-hmm.
None of that actually makes the leader a compelling presence
villain.
in a Sam Captain America movie, because that's where you tip from Ross makes sense and Red Hulk makes sense into the leader makes sense in a Ross Red Hulk movie. And that's not what this should be. So we've swung past the bounds of reason there into something that we can't contain. And then it's just a bad version of the character. Mm-hmm. And it looked weird. His whole, we love to talk about, one of our favorite things to talk about across these properties is the villain who has a point. What are we supposed to think when the leader says, the buyer says, I'm the hero.
I'm the hero.
What are we supposed to make of that in this movie?
That was such a terrible moment because I'm I don't know if this comes from a scene that was cut.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I think there's a lot of leader stuff that was cut, obviously, because we added a whole different other villain in reshoots.
Right.
There's a lot of Ruth stuff that was cut out of this movie also. And so you get these moments for them that are wholly unearned. I can understand why you would want to keep that line because I'm sure in some version of this movie, it really hit on something that you were working on, but I think they cut it out. And so then it just sounds, you just feel like, what?
Right.
Me, I'm the hero.
Right.
What?
And it's kind of, and then again, it's compounded, I think, because he's calling Ross a monster, but the movie isn't. The movie is not presenting Ross as a monster.
No.
It's presenting Ross as a man who is determined to pursue his own redemption through personal ties, which again could be interesting if done more effectively. What about the probabilities stuff? Like just the idea of the leader as a character who sees the probabilities and has potentially been in the shadows of the MCU for 16, 17 years.
I don't want
No!
it. Well, once again, that's very like Hydra has been manipulating history since, since the Red Skull,
Yeah. Tell everybody what you texted me.
What did I text you?
Where was our guy, Arnold?
Oh, yeah, where was Zola?
Probably hanging out with Howard Stark. Zola?
They went to Echo and there was all this like derelict equipment, but no AI Zola. And that was just like a real problem for me. It was a real problem for me.
Him. Your yearning tendrils were searching and seeking for AI Zola.
We've mentioned Isaiah a couple times, and I want to say Carl Lumley, innocent.
He's just sensational
He's
as always.
Wonderful in this movie.
Yeah.
Isaiah's far and away the best part of this movie. And in terms of like what I was saying, what I was accusing the movie earlier of, which is not giving us an emotional enough connection. My emotions were so wrapped up in you better get Isaiah out of jail right fucking now.
Yeah,
so
that
like
was agonizing.
That works and he works. The movie could have stood more of him. I understand putting him in jail is like sort of the propulsive, this is what we have to do. We have to solve this so that we can exonerate him so that we can get him out.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me sort of in a storytelling front, but in terms of like the emotional richness of your movie,
I agree.
You should have used much more Isaiah.
I agree completely. I think it's also connected still to the leader because part of this actually, like, part of what I thought undermined the character is that he's supposed to be the guy who sees the probabilities and can outsmart everybody and knows where things are going and what's going to happen before they do. So
I beg of you to do a bug cut,
if only
please.
we could see the probabilities and know where the fucking bug was gonna go. I think this is just a piece of dust. Actually, now I'm mistaking
because
dust
you were like gesticulating. Then he went like a cat with a piece of yarn. That was so
I really thought I was
funny.
gonna get it. Okay, I don't know for continuity exactly where my hands were, but probably doing something like this. Resuming, the leader is banking on Sam going back for Isaiah.
Yeah.
And part of what is cool for Sam in this movie is that he is able to outsmart the leader multiple times, right? He is able to see the way he's being played, figure out what the leader is expecting him to do, and then do something else. The leader has a couple moments in the movie where he goes, because he's so enraged that Sam Wilson has outsmarted him.
I'm so disappointed that's a fairly accurate impression. That's so disappointing to me. Tim Blake Nelson, I love you.
Yes. So that's impressive on the Sam front and makes us like awed by Sam. He's solving the case, but it undermines the leader if the whole thing is that he's supposed to be the guy who sees everything and he's got like the all the yarn, right?
Here's the skeleton of the better movie, right?
Yeah.
Julius Ona, who's the director of the film, who's great, and like when you hear him talk about this movie and you hear him talk about his inspirations for this movie, like I want to see that movie. This is not that movie, but whatever the movie was in his mind and all of the like very sophisticated references that he had, like I would have loved to have seen that movie. It got lost in all the rest of this. But he was talking about how much he loves the idea of the leader as a villain for Sam because the leader is all someone who is all brain forward as a foil for Sam.
Brain forward like the actual
the actual
ripples of brain
matter
tendrils
of his brain.
Yeah.
The interview that I read did not have him sort of following up on that. But when I was thinking about that, I was like, yeah, because Sam is the heart. Sam is the emotionally intelligent character. We met him. He is a counselor. He has been able to talk to Steve and other people about sort of like their emotions. And he is like in a very physician heal thyself, like in need of his own counseling sort of moment, which is what Bucky is able to do for him inside of this movie a bit. But the idea of like the head versus the heart, that's fun and compelling. Like what can outsmart the brain is like the emotional intuition and his empathy for Ross. His like, I see you as a man just trying to be better. Like conceptually, that's interesting to me. In execution, they didn't get there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fascinating observation, and I agree. Like Sam's ability from those first interactions with Steve, your bed feels like a marshmallow, to like, well, what makes you happy, and how quickly he is able to. And with Sam, I do think like part of what makes him a wonderful character is that the heart and the mind work in lockstep with him, because he is thoughtful and he is considerate and he takes the time. And this is something not a lot of people do, especially superheroes. He takes the time to learn about other people, and he genuinely tries to understand the thing that they might want or need. So yeah, I think I really like what you're saying, to then take that out of the interpersonal realm into like, well, why would, because he is still bringing, you know, his counselor heart to, obviously it's present there at the end with the appeal he makes to
the negotiation.
Ross.
Yeah.
It's there when he's talking to Joaquin at the end, but to also deploy that toward the leader, paired with his intellect and his discerning assessment of the facts on the ground, and also then like the empathy. And like, you can see how a version of that scene in Echo 1, which like, if you're going to Camp Echo 1, like it should be fucking awesome. It should be awesome. Those doors slam shut and the guards who walk by in the exactly timed sequence don't hear them. What?
That was bizarre.
Why did they not hear the doors? I just don't understand. Anyway, and for him to walk around that room and not only look for clues and intel and grab the Ross folder and piece together everything that happened with the heart and be ready to go and interrogate the president and demand answers from him, because he's actually looking for those clues. He's in Detective Sam mode, but also then to think, well, why would Samuel Stearns be doing these things, and what has happened to him? That would have been interesting. It's not really what we got though, and that's unfortunate. Anything else on what, you know, we were chatting about Isaiah. Let's go through some of Sam's relationships. We've covered a lot of this already, but on the Sam Isaiah front, what else that we have not mentioned do we want to talk about here?
I thought his physicality was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sorry, you were asking about relationships, and I'm like, let's talk about the physicality. But like, you know, Carl Lumley as this sort of like hulking figure.
Yeah.
Believable in like the boxing gym training sequence to me, believable in the sort of like running away, you know, being chased sequence to me. Like, this is a big guy. And to think about him as in his youth with the super soldier serum, to think about, you know, we didn't talk specifically, you have them here in the doc, you didn't talk specifically about the comic book.
Yeah, let's hit some of the comics.
But like Truth, Red, White, and Black.
Yeah, fantastic run.
Which is one of the best like comic book runs that Marvel has ever done.
Yeah.
To the point where like I was so disappointed in Falcon and Winter Soldier that we didn't get more of that. I thought we were going to get like a ton of flashback sort of stuff, and like honestly, they should have just done an Isaiah like centric story like on its own. That would have been amazing. But that the Robert Morales, Kyle Baker, Truth, Red, White, and Black, just watching him in a way that I don't think we got fully in Falcon and Winter Soldier, just like his powerful build. But then it highlights other problems. You have this in the notes elsewhere, but the power scaling issue inside of this movie. I had this issue with Falcon and the Winter Soldier too. This is not a show that you and I covered together. But when Sam Wilson picks up the shield without the super soldier serum and is able to fling it around the same way that Steve did, that was so weird to me. And I feel like they don't know how to do Cap shield choreography without that super soldier serum edge. So we're not seeing him like really just be a guy fighting. He's got this tech, he's got whatever. And even in the moments where they are trying to highlight that like he and this new Falcon are just guys. Yeah. Steve has a bit of a corner on the I can do this all day kind of like scrappy mentality. They haven't given Sam his version of that in a way that really works. Anyway, I wandered off the point, but like, yeah. Do you want to talk about the other comic book influences, or what do you want to?
No, let's stick on that. I think on the serum front, this was very central, obviously, to the television show, and certainly is present across this movie, like reminding us
That he doesn't have
that
it.
Sam has not taken the serum, that Sam is not a super soldier in terms of what is coursing through his blood. And so, yeah, like something like the training sequence at the gym with Isaiah and Sam, not only is it that nice shorthand to show us that, like, you know, their relationship gets off in the television show to a rocky start. Like, they have to work toward this place. And the great, like, distinction in the nature of their power and like what skills Sam uses to still be able to like get that flag, I thought was really interesting and cool. I got a kick out of the moment at the end where Sam was like, Bucky is full of shit. I should have taken that was amusing.
Genuinely the laugh of the movie.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
Because it's like Steve, Isaiah, Bucky, John Walker, the Flag Smashers, et cetera, et cetera. Like, and that's the other thing, of course, with Thunderbolt Ross that does make sense to put him in a Captain America movie, like his pursuit of the serum, the power of the serum, that, you know, that obviously all connects. But, you know, certainly Isaiah, again, really we would both really recommend checking out the comics if you haven't. This was not his choice. Mm-hmm. This was not a thing he chose for himself. Right. And so it's a horrible thing. And in one of the things that I thought was really interesting as an idea inside of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was Zemo. A lot of this is about Carly. Zemo kept hammering in the show this idea that you cannot separate super soldiers and the serum from supremacy and supremacist ideals.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's saying this, like, not just to Sam, but to Bucky.
Yeah.
Who also, again, did not choose to take the serum, right? But Winter Soldier.
Have you heard
two
of
congressmen. What an arc. And, you know, everything that we see then with John Walker and what unfolds in that film, which will be interesting to carry into Thunderbolts, like, the choice that Sam makes to not scoop up one of those vials when they're busting up the power broker's lab in Madripoor, like, tells us something important about Sam. And so I liked being reminded of that in this movie. And I'm glad that we got not only the comedy of that, but also just the you know, the reminders that this is something that makes Sam distinct. As is the case though across the film, I thought like something that could be a strength and at times was a strength, then still got kind of sucked into the spiral that was happening elsewhere in the film, because then I'm like, well, but logically then, like, Kevlar weave aside in the conversation with Sidewinder or not, like,
he can't fight a Hulk.
Right. There's that. Like, it took him like 5 minutes to beat Copperhead at the church in the beginning of the movie, but he's like hanging with Red Hulk at the end. That just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. But also, like, practically, why is he never in his suit? Like, why is he never geared up? And I know that he's like, yeah, this axe didn't kill me because I'm wearing mithril, like, basically. Okay. But,
well, can I ask a question?
He doesn't have the serum, so it doesn't make sense.
I will say this. I did not watch this movie twice. I only watched it once. My memory is that he wears the wildly unpopular white suit right at the beginning and then switches.
No cowl, though, so it was an immediate improvement.
Yeah,
yes.
but then switches to
Copperhead slices it, so then he's in the blue.
Switches to the blue.
Yeah,
I just thought that was funny when they were like, no, we're sticking by our what? No, we're not. Don't worry. No one liked it.
I know there was a 5-month time jump, but this is 3 years after the. Yeah. It's just like a long time to stay with it.
Yeah, the white suit.
That was that bad. Another Isaiah moment that I just loved and found like so touching. In Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he speaks it's very emotional when he's sharing with Sam about his wife, about Faith, and how she died when he was wrongfully imprisoned by his government for decades on end. And when he wore the wedding suit.
And when they're I'm going to cry. When they're arresting him and he's like, watch my suit. And then when Ruth brings him the dry clean suit, that's like, the kind of shit.
Beautiful stuff. Yeah,
that's
beautiful
the kind of shit
here.
that is like, that's Captain America to me. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I've never gotten emotional over dry cleaning before, but I definitely did when she showed up with his clean suit. I was just like, oh man. Yeah.
I know. That was just lovely. And I thought also
and that's tiny. That's 3 tiny beats inside of a movie. And that's what I'm saying is like, when you're thinking that way, you know, emotionally,
yes,
when crafting a story, that's 3 tiny beats that has us tearing up here.
Yeah.
They could have easily done it with Betty and Thunderbolt Ross.
No question.
Easily. They're like, have you seen the cherry blossoms? Like,
I do love a cherry blossom.
I
Being from the Mid-Atlantic, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, in
Yeah.
in San Francisco, there's a beautiful cherry blossom festival in Japantown every year. And I got really excited when he was negotiating with the Japanese leader and there were cherry blossoms everywhere. I was like, oh, cherry blossoms. And I didn't put it together. Of course, in DC, we're going to come back to the cherry blossoms.
Of course.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But like, there's just, I don't know. I really wanted this to be better.
I know. It is like seeing that there are these beautiful moments. It makes the failure to nurture them and support them and tend them in full even more disappointing. I found the rapport between Isaiah and Joaquin to be like very cute. The pulling off again, it's because we need to introduce the phone as like a plot element, which was whatever, but just the pulling the plastic off. It's like, I wanted that on there. And like, what's airdrop? That was all really cute. Speaking of Joaquin.
You called him in our notes a fanboy, and it made me think a lot about like Kamala, like or Scott. You know what I mean? Like we love it inside of the MCU when a hero gets like
Captain America. Thanks for thanking of me.
Exactly. I know you.
Oh man. Torres is just so excited, and it is. We have the history between them from the television show, and in terms of Sam's arc and his evolution to go from being a partner for Steve to a guy who now has his partner in Torres was like an effective way to show us the evolution of his character, the passage of time, the fact that he has assumed a different mantle and then is ready to pass his mantle of Falcon on to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I think also, like you said, just Danny Ramirez is quite a charming performer. What did you make of the like overall sort of shtick though with him in the movie? Was it ever effective for you? Always effective? Never effective? Did it kind of vary?
I thought he always sort of like bumped up the energy of a scene. Yeah. This movie, I think its biggest crime is how often I found it to be very boring.
Yes, quite a boring movie.
And just like dull. Yeah. And so he was always like bringing a little bit of zest.
Yes.
Which I appreciated. What didn't work for you?
No, I also appreciated the injection of levity and charm and just kind of like wonder.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of a spirit of wonder and awe because the things that are happening are extraordinary.
Yeah.
And actually part of the risk of a cinematic universe that has grown this big and gone on for this long, like part of what you risk courting is mistaking the astonishing for the mundane and the routine. Mm-hmm. And like you should actually have a character like Torres, like the new Falcon, who even a few years into his relationship with Sam is like, holy shit.
We did it.
Yeah. And like, the fact that they're in this kind of like very sterile, generic layer, whatever. But like when he saw the leader's head and he was like, damn. I was like, we need that. We need more energy like that.
When they go to Echo and he has to sort of manually break the door open.
Yes.
Were you hoping that he would say, I'm counting on you, red, white, and blue in an Air Force One reference? I was re-listening to our Harrison Ford Screen Drafts episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I had forgotten that I vetoed you on Air Force One when I found out that it was one of Trump's favorite movies. And I was just like, veto, we're done here.
There was plenty of other wonderful Harrison Ford films to consider. So it was totally fine. What did you think about Sam, given that this question of will Sam restart the Avengers is something that Sam is thinking about inside of the movie? What did the relationship between Sam and Joaquin tell you about like how Sam thinks about training somebody or like the burden of not just being a hero, but being a leader?
Yeah.
Because he obviously like early on, he's like, you're not ready for this, right?
Yeah.
He is, I think, charmed by how eager Joaquin is to get out into the field. When Joaquin is participating in the Jackal Whiskey the mind control fight out in Celestial Island, and he is not actually as prepared as he should be, has not received and does not until he's in his hospital bed this is how like momentum works when you're in the wings.
Surfing on a missile.
Was not ready to surf. That was I thought Sam surfing a missile was cool. And I did like a lot of the action. Like I thought the way that Sam Sam's Cap, but he's still got his Falcon wings, and the way that they incorporated the wings and flight into the physicality of his action sequences, I thought was pretty cool and interesting visually to watch. But like, you know, when Sam is sitting there in the hospital bed at the end and he's like, it's time to give you a lesson now. And also I'm going to like invite you to be in the Avengers, which seemed a little bit quick to me. But what did their relationship tell you about how Sam thinks about like his particular responsibility and making sure everybody else is also ready for the fight that awaits? Because part of what he voices to Bucky is like, this is much bigger than me. Like, this is a lot to carry.
Yeah. Steve thwarted 2 alien invasions, you know, all of that sort of stuff. I'm a little worried. Because I'm worried that this movie like sets him up to be a leader of Avengers, and I worry that Marvel, Disney is never going to let him be the leader of the Avengers, not because he's a Black Captain America and we can't have that, but more like that character hasn't hit the way that they wanted him to.
Right.
And so, you know, if let's say Thunderbolts hits or Fantastic Four hits,
yeah.
and in a new iteration of the Avengers, we have different options for leadership. Like, I don't think it's going to be Sam Wilson. I don't know. And so that like his whole arc inside of this film, as flimsy as it was, I worry is not going to pay out in the future of the franchise.
Yeah. I'm curious how much they're still assessing. I mean, Avengers Doomsday is not that far away. It's just not that far away.
Yeah.
So they have a lot to figure out very quickly. You on the Thunderbolts front, we've already talked about how much we both enjoyed that Bucky Sam scene. Is there anything else you want to say about it, about that Bucky cameo, about James Buchanan Barnes?
Congressional
running for Congress, despite being the Winter Soldier and having publicly executed over years.
And I would point you to our current political climate.
Sure, but I don't think Bucky's a guy who would be leaning into that.
I think
that's the difference.
I think we're gonna have to see what his motivation is for doing this, because it's unclear right now.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
But perhaps if you have enough of stubble on your jaw,
he looked.
You can
just
get it
so
done.
Great. He looked so great. Boy, I mean, he always looked great, but he really looked great. Speaking of looking great, we've hit a lot of the Red Hulk, Thunderbolt Ross stuff, but Harrison Ford looked great. I'm not sure if I've said that yet. What did you think of this performance from Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross Red Hulk in Phase 5 of the MCU? What did you think?
I liked what he has said in interviews about like the idea of picking up the mantle from William Hurt. Like, I think there's like a personal degree to that of like, this is an actor I respected and I am sort of, you know, honoring his legacy by taking over this role.
Yeah.
If that were not the case, it would really seem to me like someone was holding Harrison Ford hostage to make him make this movie, or that he has severe gambling debts, or like those little death trap planes of his are not going to buy themselves.
Yeah,
like,
I liked when Amanda saw a big picture. She's like, aviation is just like a really expensive.
I don't know why.
Oh man.
Otherwise,
I mean, he's always been our franchise king. He's always been our IP king. Obviously, his tortured relationship to being in those movies has, I think, slightly evolved in his recent years. But yeah, this was like, I don't know. It was I had a lot of dissonance with this, where on the one hand, I thought this was like kind of, I say this with a lot of love for him, kind of consistent actually with like a certain tone of his recent performances. Again, that kind of like contemplative, reflective, I'm looking back at my mistakes from earlier years. But yeah, just like we have to give Harrison Ford, one of the true all-time genuine greats, more. We've just got to give him more, folks,
or he can
than this.
Or counterpoint, he could do less.
Be in fewer things?
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna.
You love him in Shrinking. That's great. Does he need to be in like a Paramount Plus show and a Marvel movie and everything else?
Yes, and until you watch 1923, don't you dare ask that question.
You're gonna have to trade me. I still haven't seen the Landman finale.
What? Oh my God. You kind of did when during the Super Bowl they did an ad. Actually, you didn't watch the Super Bowl. I was going to make a joke about how they did an ad during the Super Bowl that was basically like, do you like being able to have your baby in a hospital? Oil. It's like, that's kind of the Landman finale, sort of. And it was also around a lot of Michelob Ultra ads. What else on the Ross front? We've talked about Betty. We've talked about the history between Ross and Sam. Anything you want to say about Prime Minister Ozaki? What a thrill for Shogun Hive.
Great.
Oh my God. Talk about handsome.
Very handsome.
Love him.
Not a very interesting part for a very good actor,
Yeah.
but very handsome.
Would be nice to give him a little bit more to work with here. Let's see. What else? Gamma pills.
Ruth?
Leader. Oh, red lollipop for Hulk. You think CR would have been like, just give this guy some Zines? Zins.
Zins?
What are they called? Pouches. Zins?
Call them zines next time you see them.
I don't fucking
You into
know.
the zine scene?
I know Chris really likes them, and sometimes I send him articles about it. Zines?
My favorite M. Night Shyamalan
Zines?
movie is Zines.
I'll send Chris articles sometimes, and he's like, I've read it.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's like when you send me a TikTok, and I'm like, I've seen the reel. So anything else on the Sidewinder front before we get to Ruth? I just thought this was a bizarre waste of the Serpent Society when this was not the Serpent Society at all. It's just like dude who is involved in a plot and wants to be paid for it. That's what Seth Volker and Sidewinder did in this movie.
It just feels like the vestigial remains of a different movie.
Very annoying. Do you think we'll see more? Will Sidewinder be back?
No.
Okay. That's yep. Okay. It's hard to argue. Ruth. Why was this character in this movie?
Because they wanted a widow. They wanted a.
So that's really because we're just like we got to hit every parallel
Winter
Winter Soldier that we
Yeah.
possibly can.
Yeah.
That's just very.
But
tough.
they severely cut back her role.
Yes.
They cut Rosa Salazar out of this movie, the actress Rosa Salazar out of this
Yeah.
movie, and the character of Layla Agent Taylor is
This was also
Sharon Carter.
So weird.
It's our Sharon Carter parallel, and she's just hardly used. That actress is really fun. She was so funny in the Mindy Project. Like that actress can
Yeah.
be great,
And this is like a meaningful character in Sam's
in the
comics
comics.
canon.
and it's just like a nothing, absolute nothing nonsense.
Yeah, this was all very weird. I thought with Ruth, it's like, okay, because Sam and Layla have history and a relationship, maybe the movie, the filmmakers think like, well, because there's a personal connection there, that can't be, even though she's Ross's Secret Service agent, that can't be the person who's like in Ross's camp who says, actually, Sam and Joaquin are right, because she'd be predisposed to think that. So we need someone who is initially impartial, and Ruth can achieve that. And obviously they're, updating the canon to shift from changing the comics canon to make her a widow in the film. But just like not.
I thought this was a genuinely terrible performance. And I think Shara Haas has been good in other things. And this was just like a real mismatch of a performer and a property. I did like the physicality of her though, because like she's so tiny. And so like watching her fight was fun. But this was a miss.
I just thought the movie was so crowded, considering how short it is. This was
Yeah.
part of what contributed to the sense of really being like heavily edited and reworked.
Yeah.
You have, when you remove the credits, like an hour and 45-minute movie. You've got 3 villains with Red Hulk, Leader, and Sidewinder, and then you have all of these heroes or swing
This is
votes.
Spider-Man 3. Like, what are we
It's just
doing?
too many characters, and so Ruth was a real like, what, this we just have too
But
many
again,
people.
they like
in the movie.
majorly cut her
Like,
out, I think, because she wasn't working. And once again, this is not against the actress who is the star of Unorthodox and was quite good in that. So like, it's not about the actress, it's about the way the role is written or the match of her energy in Marvel or whatever it is. Just didn't work. And so they had to they cut her way back. This is a strange casting misfire from Marvel, which usually doesn't make errors like this. So yeah,
should we do some Easter eggs before we go?
let's do it.
There were actually quite a few fun ones. Any favorites, Joe?
I think the Ross mustache
Yeah, good,
was pretty
genuinely
great.
good stuff.
was pretty great.
In the largely misguided, opening stretch of newsreel montage catch-up footage, the like,
Yeah,
that's
that's the thumbnail, guys.
It'll be very similar to the White Lotus thumbnail from last night. But angry Thunderbolt Ross, like having a conniption with his mustache. And then also we get the mustache in some of the family the photoshopped photos, which is also delightful. I think my favorite is Mr. Blue, which is the Trigger song.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Blue is, of course, the code
Mr.
name
Blue.
that was Stearns' code name in Incredible Hulk, Mr. Green, Mr. Blue. So that was fun. I liked that. Actually on the photo front, in the Sam Joaquin hangout office space, I did have a little pang in my heart when we saw the photo of Sam and Riley. Like, I really liked that was there. I felt glad that was there. And, Sam's original wingman. There's also a picture of his sister and the family boat. And we have like a lot of different things in the space there. But it was great. It was great to see Riley. I liked that.
Given that this is essentially a Hulk movie.
Yeah.
Would it have pleased you if, as had been rumored, Amadeus Cho had been in this movie?
So the speculation, the answer is yes, it would have pleased me. He is currently in, if anyone's watching the animated series, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, he is in that.
Yeah.
The speculation is that he's the pill guy, right?
Sure.
That he's Dunphy's pill guy. That's who Dunphy has.
Dunphy
Demolition Man,
Yeah.
Dennis, looking into the pills. That would have been the Amadeus Cho role.
And do you think we
right?
would have seen him on the other side of the phone at some point? If they were going to do that, were they going to introduce him? Like,
unless they're going full like White Lotus, you just have to suss out whose voice it is on the other end.
That's a preview for next week's White Lotus. Exciting.
Yeah, that would have been fun. I like Amadeus Cho.
I love Amadeus Cho.
Yeah, me too. Roxanne Bleach.
Sure.
Always great to get a Roxanne. I thought when you were going to say Hulk, like Thunderclap.
Thunderclap
also
was great.
some Sonic cannons. What did you think? You're a big sports fan. What did you think of all the Miami gear? We got some Hurricanes gear, some Heat gear. You were clocking all of that?
I saw a commercial while watching SNL 50 last night.
Yeah.
I very rarely watch commercials, but I was forced to while watching SNL 50.
Yeah.
And there's a whole Duke UNC joke commercial. And I was like, because I'm watching White Lotus.
There you go.
Now I understand why this is such a big deal. And I felt very educated.
You're the best. I love this journey for you. Will you watch a Duke UNC game?
No. Why would I? But I like to know. And now I know.
I love that. I love that for you. Okay. Any other favorite Easter eggs?
No.
All right. Anything else that you'd like to say about this movie?
I wish it had been better than it was. It wasn't as bad as it might have been. And I'm still really excited for Daredevil and Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four.
Same. And I'm excited to see Sam and more stuff. Like
but he's
Sam
not,
really
Sam is going to be.
Sam deserved more than this.
He
really
did, and I was so confused when they announced this movie right off the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which again I did not think was very successful. They're like, and now we're making a Cap movie, and I was like, I wanted them to take more time to figure out what they were doing with Sam, even though that was like many years ago. I still wanted them to I would have loved to have seen Sam in other things before we got this movie. This just felt like the wrong time or a misguided effort to reintroduce him as Captain America. You know?
I think like for me with the show, with the obvious, notable, and important caveat of the finale, which was a really bad episode of television. My issues with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the show, are not Sam-centric. They're like everything with the Flag Smashers and the Power Broker and how convoluted and naughty the plot got with that stuff. I thought generally like Sam and Bucky and Sam and Isaiah in that show were I really enjoyed all of that. So, and I think that show is, I think, will rise in estimation actually in comparison to this movie, which is maybe faint praise. But
I mean, yeah, that's something that I think you rewatched it, and Steve was like, I rewatched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like we were too hard on it. I was like, where are we? But let's bear. What does it do to you watching that movie, knowing that Rhodey is a scroll? That watching that show, knowing that Rhodey is a scroll, that whole show. I mean, I still just can't get over all. I mean, he's only has a couple scenes, but like I did have a Secret Invasion thought while watching this because it's like, there's just no acknowledgement of like who Ross beat. Like, is it
Is it President Ritson? Like, we don't know, but I think they're just pretending that Ritson did not exist and that secret invasion did not happen, and that's fine and probably good.
Here's my final
Yeah.
Stance on this.
Is it about Turkish Delight and Zemo?
Captain America, Brave New World, better than Secret Invasion.
Platitudes! Okay. Thank yous. Thank you to our holiday crew here today, Steve Ahlman and John Richter. Just the best.
Yeah.
We have been in this very room with these two
President's
people
Day.
for so many hours over the last 3 days. One of the true low points for all of us was parting ways at like 7 p.m. on Friday, Valentine's Day, and asking if we needed to move stuff, and John saying, nope, the next people back in this room.
It's us.
It's us.
On President's Day.
It's us, guys.
Yeah.
And here we are. So thank you to Steve and John. They're the best. Thank you, as always, to Arjuna Ramgopal, legend icon, Jomi Adeniran on the socials, crushing it. Next up for us, Yellow Jackets Season 3, Episode 3 on Friday. White Lotus over on Prestige. You're covering Severance over on Prestige as well, and you're doing Double Lotus on Prestige. Until next time, Joanna, just remember, if there's one thing you can take with you, it's this. Lose the mustache or lose the election.